right. Good to see you. And, Mohan is a professor, academic, and he spends a lot of time, has deep interest in sustainability as part of Nottingham University Business School in Malaysia, and also he is also involved internationally. So he takes a lot of interest. It pretty much he's connected to what's happening, not only in Asia, internationally. And it's always very interesting to hear his thoughts. So today, very happy to have you here, Mohan, with us. So you have been looking at these reports for quite some time, and you also interact with a lot of companies. And so how do you see sustainability reporting evolving in these last few years that you have observed this entire space?
Thank you, Rajesh and Elaine. And just a step back, it is important to acknowledge ASRA's awards, how it started in a small space and has grown to a massive space and never stopped even in the pandemic. Kudos to you, Rajesh, Elaine, and to your fantastic team. The global pandemic in 2020, when the lockdowns happened, never imagined this would go online. There are 150 plus people today also. So hats off to you guys. That itself is a testament, right? That the awards continues for so long, it doesn't fizzle out, as a way to answer your question, Rajesh. And I just have to sort of connect the dots, what Lawrence and Sylvian and Professor Guler have mentioned, how the reports have moved and matured over a period of time. Companies beginning to understand that it's not about philanthropy and nothing's wrong in the good deeds they do to society, but it's about integrating the good into the business model or business strategy. And that's coming through. There are some excellent newcomers who come up and challenge the existing players. And we can see the regular winners going up and down. That's a good indication. And there are also some newcomers who come in without a knowledge of the space and still doing some hodgepodge reporting, if I may. And so, but the space has matured and there is a fantastic variability. Which means there is a space to discuss these things and see how we can move forward. I liked what Professor Guler and Sylvian also talked about, the maturity of the space, and we're moving in a different direction now. All that augurs very well for this, Rajesh. Very, very beautiful way that things are moving. And the pandemic didn't stop it. Testament to human nature, testament to Rajesh, Elaine, and Niti.
Well, Mohan, thanks for those nice words. So we have sustained because friends like you and everyone else who is here with us today. And so we are very thankful to everyone who has supported us through this pandemic period. And we're really looking forward to be back all together, all those good old times, hopefully very soon. So can't wait to welcome you, Mohan, again back here.
Looking forward. Yeah.
Summit and awards. So Elaine, it's over to you.
Well, I can't wait to get back to Singapore too. So let's hope this is the year. And so far we've heard about key elements of reporting being, materiality, targets, progress against targets. And I think it might have been Gula who mentioned the report being a roadmap. And I wondered what you thought about that, Mohan, because, for so many years, reporting has been about historical performance. Right. But more and more, I think we're moving into companies actually talking about what they're going to do, not just what they have done. And if they've got targets, how they're going to achieve targets. So, net zero by 2050, when most of the current management team won't be around. What is the roadmap to achieving that? I wondered what you thought about how important is that in reporting? Is that now table stakes for reporting that companies should talk about targets, the future, the way they're going to achieve, new value creation?
I'm so glad to hear a different question. I was a bit panicky. I have to say the same that the others have said. I think we can just piece together. I don't know whether you did it by design, Elaine and Rajesh, the way you had the governance man to start with, the supply chain man follows, and then the lady with integrated financial reporting. And if you pull their points together, we can get the answer to your question. I'm the last person who likes data, Elaine. I'm called the fluff in the business school, strategy and innovation, right? Whereas Professor Guler and Sylvian deal with the hard data, but you can't run away from it. And it's not just static data of this year and report it and get it over with. So to answer your question, companies now need to keep their database to see that, right? The economists love the term time series, but it's so important to see. I'm not a fan of time series either. The past really can't predict the future so very well anymore. But for an organization, I think it's very important to have that baseline and see how they have improved or not improved, like you were saying, and tell the truth. And unlike in the past, the fears of admitting weaknesses, I think, is over now. The market wants it. I'm sure the investors always need it. So the truth will set them free. And the truth will set them free if they have continuous data, not just a one-off kind of thing and give it to a consultant. The role of the consultant, I understand, is to help them keep to the formats and not write all over the place. So that's a very critical role. I don't want to use the jargon of big data and analytics and so on, but I think the sustainability agendas, how well they record it. Allow me one last statement as an anecdote. There is a fantastic organization in Malaysia, an SME, and I can swear by it with my heart, but unfortunately not with my head. We know the gentleman does work amazingly, and he admitted it in one of the guest sessions. But because he didn't keep the data, he wasn't given the top accreditations. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way the world runs. And so the base data, continuous data to see how your movements are on the parameters would be lovely to see.
Okay, Mohan. Yeah. So now we are seeing a tremendous, momentum in reporting, and very clearly we are seeing that there is a supply and demand gap now between the talent needed to do the job in entire sustainability space. So you are on the academic side, and I can also take this opportunity to say, and you can perhaps reconfirm that Nottingham University Business School, say in Nottingham, was the first university in the world to set up an international center for CSR and also introduce an MBA program focused with specialization in CSR.
Right.
And then now I think it's almost all business schools, it's very fashionable for them to have something or the other, a program on sustainability. Yeah. So being a pioneer, where do you see, how do we, what universities are doing or business schools are doing to bridge this gap of supply of talent?
So two ways in going through it. This was a reflection we had last year, that we no more had the competitive advantage of being the first. In the words of an American consultant, Nottingham is like Durham, Birmingham, and any other bloody ham. And so how do we stand out? I thought of linking it there also to some of the questions that you were posing to the other judges. For ourselves and for the organizations who are reporting and putting themselves up for the awards. How do we differentiate ourselves when everything is getting general? I think Professor Lawrence made the important statement, general to specifics. We can't have a generic CSR program or sustainability program anymore. And unfortunately, the terms also have evolved into their own meanings. To Nottingham, CSR and sustainability was systemic and CSR was related to business organizations. But that's the whole thinking has changed in the market. So we are using the term responsible business. So I wanted to make the statement also for the contestants or the participants in the program. ESG sits in the middle. And what Professor Guler and Sylvian were talking about, the purpose of the organization is the beginning. And the performance is another issue. And that's how we are beginning to look at things. So the finance gangs and the accounting gangs are going to look at the middle part. How do you get the data, support the leadership, and so on. And on the other hand is leadership. So we are seeing ourselves moving on the leadership direction because we've laid the ground 25 years. The wise, excuse this expression, and unfortunately it was only the three wise men. But we're bringing in more wise women now to start. I mean, the ones who started these programs. And there was a woman, but it was Rajesh is one of those wise men, by the way, who was involved in the setting up of the modules and so on. So bringing about these diversities into the program, not for ticking the boxes, but to see how we get value, diverse views, and then start shaping the program also differently. By virtue of our location, and I'll also link it to one of the submissions in the diversity space for the ASRA Award. One of the winners had a fantastic framework, keeping in mind their multi-location, as far as USA to India to in between in the Southeast Asian and African parts. That's something that stood out a lot to me, judging these reports. I don't think even SMEs can now operate, and particularly in countries like Malaysia and Singapore, can't operate in their little spaces. They have to go global in today's world. So having these frameworks, and we are also leveraging our multi-location. We've got solid campuses in Malaysia, China, and UK. And Singapore, we have a small leg, and to see how we can put this into our differentiator. So that's for Nottingham. And I think the same thing holds to the participants in the awards program. How do they start differentiating themselves? Right? And I have a little anecdote on that, which will come to the next question when we answer. I'm going to pull it together.
Let it come.
Well, I was just going to ask, Mohan, because you talked, among all of the things you said, you talked about purpose being the beginning. And one of the things that reporting has never really done that well is include this concept of purpose and ask companies to link, performance to purpose. In fact, there was just last week, I think, saw some research that had been done, a sort of ranking, I think it's in Canada, I'll need to check, but a ranking of how companies actually report on how they are living their purpose. Yeah. And I'm wondering if that's like the next big thing in reporting. And if you think it's a sort of gap now in reporting as it stands.
Very true, and that links to what I was planning to say also. I knew it. Your heart breaks when you see good reports, but they're not going to win, simply because there's a lot of data going nowhere. Somebody runs to comply to some things, and they've done a great job here, they've done a great job there. It just doesn't tie in together. Professor Guler did point out that it has to be built into the business model or into the strategy of the organization, but that's still very dry. The purpose part, without being condescending, obviously, right? You don't condescend to the market, you don't condescend to the investors. There has to be a clear direction, and we are relooking as we speak. Our school is under review right now. We're a 3-campus school. What's the point in being in China, Malaysia? Rajesh may be aware. Malaysians have a saying, you, I. That shouldn't means you do your own thing, I do my own thing, under a framework. But now we are looking at more, how are we integrated? What do we offer to our market with these multiple locations? I think it's the same for organizations. So the anecdote I wanted to share, I'm not sure if I'm going to be fired for this, but truth should set us free, right? So the consultant who was trying to shape the strategy for the business school asked a question, what differentiates you? And so a lot of the academics started talking about their specializations, health or CSR or finance. That's when the various hams came in. They said, you don't look different from any other ham. So what is it that really differentiates your company and links to the purpose? And I've got two, one who's crossed teenage and one who's in the teenage in the house. And it's interesting observing them, how they observe companies. They look for responsibility in ingredients, responsibility even for her internship, the amount of digging she did. And we couldn't convince her to go to a company because until she did her digging and found out how responsible they are towards employees, towards the market, and in the supply chain. And only then she chose to accept the internship. Well, as older Indians, we thought, wow, what a cocky little girl and arrogant little girl, right? But that's the way the market works. So I think that's where the purpose comes in. And Elaine, I'm so happy that Astra brought in the CEO letter. I wouldn't have any clue. I don't know, Rajesh reads my mind every time. I thought storytelling, and a few years ago he had a session on storytelling. And this issue of the CEO letter, we looked at 200 CEO letters before and during the pandemic. And it was staggering to see how different the CEOs of good companies spoke differently. Immediately responding to the pandemic, the humanity of issues, whereas some of them were just still playing a lip service. We could see very clear differences qualitatively. So yes, the purpose It makes you stand out, and then everything, the ESG should follow through. There shouldn't be a disconnect among these issues.
Thank you, Mohan.
Yeah.
It's always great to have you on our events. So thanks for your support. I think we have a picture. So if my colleagues can take a picture and let us know it's done.